possible.
You must be a member, and then
It talked of agreement, legal agreement, a treaty. What obtained between Southern Cameroon and the Republic of Cameroon was not a legal negotiation. It was not. It was a political decision sanctioned by a plebiscite. When they talk of a copy of a treaty, there was no legal negotiation. No. What was done was the UN plebiscite, and that was a political decision approved by the vast majority of the population of Southern Cameroon. It did not require a treaty.
But at the time, was the Republic of Cameroon, as we speak, was it a member of the United Nations? They became a member immediately after?
The Republic of Cameroon became a member September 1960. But Southern Cameroon was never a member. Mm-hmm. So Southern Cameroon could not invoke Article 102. And in addition to that, Article 102 refers to a legal negotiation which will ultimately end with a treaty, end with an agreement. But this was not an issue of a treaty.
It was, so if I get what you're saying, it was supposed to be a negotiation between two independent states that are members of the United Nations before what you're saying would apply?
Before invoking Article 102. And it should be a legal discussion, a legal negotiation, which ultimately should lead to a treaty.
Now, you go further to say the three main political parties in the territory, namely the KNC, KPP, and the KNDP, were the flag bearers of two of the options. The KNC-KPP alliance wanted the territory to achieve independence by associating with Nigeria, while the KNDP dilly-dallied with secession and a period of British trusteeship as the territory negotiates reunification with Cameroon session. But you say that the most popular option of secession and independence as a separate political entity was not forthrightly and openly championed by any political party until the creation of the KUP in 1959. How do we understand this?
This is just to emphasize the point that independence as a separate state
was the most popular.
Well, no, that was what the Fronts and Chiefs championed in 1956 when Von Chirimbi, the second, made it very clear. In a meeting in Bamenda, we rejected fire, we rejected water. Which meant what? They rejected association with Nigeria, they rejected reunification with French government, but subsequently they changed their position in 1957 at the London Constitutional Conference.
The funds?
Yeah, they changed their position in 1957 at the London Constitutional Conference. Von Gadiga the second wired the Fronts and Chiefs back home. So please prepare for us to support the position of the KNDP. The position of the KNDP was not independence as a separate state. There was no discussion between 1949, for instance, right up to 1958. The various UN visiting missions, 1958, 1949, 1952, 1955, 1958, none of the petitions talked of independence as a separate state. None. None.
Yeah, but what would explain that, like you say, that the Fronts were of the opinion that there should be a separate state, and in 1957, there is a turnaround. Were they forced? No. Were they bribed, or something went wrong?
No, they were not forced. They were not bribed. Whether we like it or not, we should accept that there was this tendency to support the KNDP. The KNDP party was regarded, rightly or wrongly, as
our property, that is the property of the grass field.
Okay.
So the majority of the influential funds and chiefs were from the grass field. And the vast majority of the Southern Cameroon population was made up of the grass field. So they should be taken into account, because when PM Kale created the Cameroon United Party in February 1959, and he came out strongly, I repeat, strongly in favor of independence as a separate state, he did not get any support. He did not get any support. And even when the issue was tabled in the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly in September 1959, the KNDP, the KNC did not talk of independence as a separate state.
So the option of the separate state was not championed by the political parties that were charged with moving this process forward. Because you say, unfortunately, this popular option was not one of the plebiscite questions, principally because British authorities impressed on the international community that the territory would not survive financially as a separate independent state. But from your reading, do you think that if the third option were to feature in the plebiscite, it would have won the day?
To say when you are looking at history, you analyze history within the context. Yeah. At that time, it was the international community was made to believe that Southern Cameroon was not rich, which of course was not true. And it is not true. Southern Cameroon could conveniently have survived as a separate independent state, because much smaller and much poorer countries achieved independence in their own right. For instance, the Gambia, and subsequently we had other smaller states, Equatorial Guinea and the rest. You see, so at that time, you have to discuss it within the context of the time, the political climate, the Cold War, the fight between the West and the East.
You raised the issue of the Afro-Asian bloc. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which the Afro-Asian bloc had principal Africans, and Kwame Nkrumah, NASA, Secretary, and they all wanted the United States of Africa. And their argument was, if African colonies achieve independence in little states, it will make the creation of a United States of Africa very difficult. Mm-hmm. So they wanted Southern Cameroon to achieve independence in association with either Nigeria or the Republic of Cameroon, which in their thinking will eventually facilitate the creation of the United States of Africa.
Now, what went wrong in this process? Because some people think that the President Ahmadou Ahidjo, who at the time was the president of the Republic of Cameroon, outsmarted the politicians from West Cameroon.
See, whether we like it or not, at the end of the day, politics is interest. It was foolhardy for Southern Cameroonians to expect Ahmadou Ahidjo to protect the interests of Southern Cameroons. Ahmadou Ahidjo wanted power for himself, wanted power for French and Cameroon. So it was now left for the politicians of Southern Cameroons, in my view, to also insist and fight for the interests of Southern Cameroons. Why do I say this? Because at the Fumban conference and later on at the Yaoundé tripartite conference, at the end, you had in Delhi, for instance, pleading that the Republic of Cameroon and Ahmadou Ahidjo should treat Southern Cameroons as a younger brother, which means that they recognize that they were not equal. So how can you You are talking of the conference, discussing the constitution, and then you are pleading that the Republic of Cameroon, led by Amadou Ahidjo, should treat Southern Cameroon as a younger brother. If you look at the African setting, is an elder brother gets more than what the parents give the younger brother. So once you start saying, please treat us, handle us like a younger brother, it means treat us well. We don't know what is in our interest. So please, since you are our elder brother, and treat us well.
Now,
it looks funny, but politically, the Southern Cameroon just gave away their bargaining right.
How do we understand this when we are made to understand that there was a constitution that they went to Fumban with? Who came up with this constitution? What are some of the points that were contained in that constitution that still exists today?
It should be understood. What was taken to Fumban was a draft constitution.
Mm.
The constitution of the Republic of Cameroon was retouched or revisited. And you had given Foncha a draft in May 1961, with the understanding that Foncha will discuss the draft with the Southern Cameroon politicians in preparation for the Fumban conference, because the Southern Cameroon politicians were supposed to meet in Bamenda in June 1961 to adopt their own draft, which they will present in Fumban. Unfortunately, they went to Bamenda, discuss the draft that they had, without knowing, most of them, without knowing that Foncha already had received the draft from Amadou Ahidjo. Foncha did not present it in Bamenda.
How can we be sure that that was not presented in Bamenda?
Fine. First of all, the eyewitnesses, N.N. Mbile, explained that very well. Fortunately for Cameroonians, Fon Anguafo is still alive. He attended the Bamenda Constitutional Conference and attended the Fumban Conference. And the documents are there. So historians or Cameroonians who argue should just go back to the authentic documents. Fon Anguafo is still alive. You should ask. It's as simple as that. So when the Fumban Conference opened, the Southern Cameroon, the delegation was surprised when Ahidjo talked to them about the copy of the draft. And it was Ndeli who got up and said, some of us are seeing this draft for the first time. And he requested that Ahidjo should give them time, the Southern Cameroon delegation time, to study the draft. And Ahidjo gave the Southern Cameroon delegation time to study the draft. So while the Southern Cameroon the delegation was there trying to study the draft, the delegates of the Republic of Cameroon were bored. So they were just moving around, waiting for the Southern Cameroon delegates to finish studying the draft. And when they did, they came together and approved what was the draft. And it is important to note that what was approved in Fumban, for instance, Article 47, which says any revision of this constitution which affects the unity and territorial integrity of the federation was not in what emerged from Fumban. That phrase was inserted at the Yaoundé tripartite talks of August 1961.
Yeah. So after Fumban, they went to there was another talk in Yaoundé.
Yes. See, let me make it clear. The UN Resolution 1608, which approved the plebiscite results, called on the United Kingdom, the Republic of Cameroon, and Southern Cameroon to take measures to ensure the implementation implementation of this agreement, of this result. Which means that Britain, France, Britain, Republic of Cameroon, and Southern Cameroon were to have tripartite meetings. No, the tripartite meetings to ensure the implementation of Article 1608.
Yeah.
And Cameroonians have been deceived that there were no tripartite meetings, which is not true. There was a tripartite conference in Yaoundé. August.
What was discussed in this meeting?
There was a tripartite conference in Boya, in Yaoundé, and all these meetings were aimed at agreeing on how Southern Cameroons will achieve independence, will implement the resolution 1608. And because the thorny issue was the transfer of sovereignty. And this is what Cameroonians don't want to believe. The transfer of sovereignty was agreed by the Southern Cameroons, the Republic of Cameroon, and the United Kingdom. That's it.
Yeah, but where is all these complaints coming from when people think that President Amadou Ahidjo did not respect most of what was agreed at the Fumban conference? Nobody seemingly is making mention of the tripartite meeting of Yaoundé and Boya that you are talking.
Yeah, but that is what I will call political bad faith. Tripartite meetings as required took place. And you see, people talk a lot of the Fumban conference. The Fumban conference did not produce any constitution.
Okay.
What came out from the Fumban conference were constitutional proposals. And these constitutional proposals were put in legal constitutional form at the Yaoundé tripartite talks. That's where those constitutional proposals were put in constitutional forms. That's it. And it is important to underscore that while the National Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon deliberated and adopted the draft federal constitution in August 1961, the Southern Cameroon's House of Assembly, the Southern Cameroon's House of Chiefs, never, I repeat, never deliberated on it. And you ask yourself, why is it that the Southern Cameroon's politicians did not insist that we should also deliberate on it?
Now, I want to understand, let televiewers actually understand how this National House of Assembly, yes, how did it operate? Under which government at the time?
No, the Southern Cameroon's House of Assembly and the Southern Cameroon's House of Chiefs operated under the government of the KNDP. Foncha was the Prime Minister. Yeah. So one would have expected the KNDP government, and I should go back a little bit. At the Fumban conference, the CPNC of Dr. EML in Delhi, and the Fons and Chiefs, the one Cameroon party, were all represented at the Fumban conference. Unfortunately, at the Yaoundé tripartite talks, the most important talks that produced the constitution, in Delhi went there only with KNDP. CPNC was not there. The one was not there. Unsurprisingly, the Southern Cameroon's Bar Association had informed the KNDP that they were willing to help in this constitutional process, but they were not invited. And this is what I would like Cameroonians to understand, because there's a misconception that Southern Cameroon Bar Association did not exist at the time. It is not true. The Southern Cameroon Bar Association was created in July 1961. 6th of July 1961, the Southern Cameroon Bar Association was created with Sam Indeli, Iti Egbe, Pamela Engel were some of the members. And they were prepared to assist the Southern Cameroon government. But the Foncha and the KNDP went to the tripartite, Yaoundé tripartite talks without taking any opposition leader. And consequently, that was partly why they came out with a 4G. And I said this based on facts.
No.
Because let me finish. In the Southern Cameroon's House of Assembly debate in September 1961, Motombi Weleta of the CPNC told Foncha, as far as Article 47 is concerned, we have made an error here. You have made an error here. Go back and tell Mamadou Ahidjo that Article 47 is wrong. And that what was wrong in Article 47? That first phrase or sentence: any revision of this constitution which impacts on the unity and integrity of the federation is unacceptable. Motombi later pointed that out, that this is wrong. Mr. Foncha, I hope you will go back to Yaoundé and tell Ahidjo.
Now, I want televiewers to really understand. Foncha was prime minister, as yes. You are saying. President Amadou Ahidjo was president. Yeah. This arrangement, was it the outcome of the federal constitution, or how did that come to being? When was it agreed that, okay, Ahidjo, you are president naturally, as a president, we are joining you? How do we choose the prime minister?
Yeah, in the private meetings between Ahidjo and Foncha, based on secret documents, it was agreed that Foncha will be the vice president. And that was inserted in the constitution as a provisional or temporal measure, that the Foncha will be the vice president, Ahidjo will be the president, and it was made clear that the president and the vice president should not come from the same state. So it was not possible to have a president and vice president from East Cameroon, or president and vice president from West Cameroon.
Now, secretly they agreed. Did it work? Foncha was prime minister. Did we see his influence on East Cameroon, or it was an arrangement that was to work only for the people of Southern Cameroon?
No, you see, what is important, as I've been trying to point out, is that in the adoption of the constitution by the National Assembly of the Republic of Cameroon and the Southern Cameroon's House of Assembly in September 1961, only approved the way the negotiations were done, the brotherly way, the friendly manner, but not the constitution per se. And Articles 5 and 6 of the Federal Constitution of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, Articles 5 and 6, completely made it difficult for Southern Cameroon, eventually West Cameroon, to enjoy the benefits of a federal structures. Because most of those structures, which federal system allows each state to enjoy, Articles 5 and 6 made those structures or those items federal items, which means that Yaoundé controlled them. And when he said Ahidjo or the president had the right to appoint federal inspectors, it fell in line with Articles 5 and 6. And when Ahidjo decided to federalize the police system in Southern Cameroon, in West Cameroon, West Cameroonians complained. But the Attorney General referred those who complained to Articles 5 and 6.
Now, when we have the political aspirations of the people of Southern Cameroon was carried by political leaders. We have the KNDP, KUP, that came in 1959,
Yeah.
and a host of others. Were they so confident and had so much trust in their brothers in East Cameroon to the extent that they had to dissolve their political parties in favor of one Grand National Party?
You see, the problem is that the Southern Cameroons or West Cameroonian politicians grew up in a different political setting where gentlemen kept their words and were not used to changing positions once given. The situation you are talking of the dismantling of the multi-party system, the situation in West Cameroon made that possible.
Okay.
Because the CPNC of Indeli was afraid of the KNDP of Foncha. The two could not agree. The CPNC felt that for it to survive, it had to rely on the UC. And the KNDP also felt that for it to survive, it had to rely on the UC. And of course, there was the split within the KNDP, which led Momona to create his own political party. So they all in West Cameroon felt that for them to survive, there should be a single party system. And this played into the hands of Amadou Ahidjo, who all along had wanted a very strong, centralized system.
Are there not untold stories behind this merge into one great national party, which is the CNU? Are you sure that we're not also coerced from behind?
No, you see, unfortunately, the politicians, be the politicians in East Cameroon or West Cameroon, thought more of their political interests than the general interest. Because you see, a one-party system doesn't speak well for a federal structure. What I'm saying is that federalism cannot survive in a one-party system. So you cannot have a one-party system and at the same time you are talking of a federal system. Because a one-party system means what? A one-party system means that the party decides the policy of the nation and the government implements. You understand? And the one-party system means what? Power, instructions, directives come directly from the center. That's what it means. And it also means that the politicians are all elected by one party on a list system. So a federal structure, a federal system cannot survive in a one-party system. So the West Cameroonians who approved, adopted, and campaigned for a one-party system failed to realize that indirectly they were campaigning for the destruction of the federal structure.
Destruction of the federal structure. You see, there was a prime minister, the House of Assembly, this week. What was the weight? What powers did these structures that existed in southern Cameroon, though there was a reunification, what was the weight of these structures as far as taking decisions?
In fact, in West Cameroon or Southern Cameroon, the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly really perform the functions and duties of a legislative body, control the activities of the executive body. But once it became a one-party system from 1966, the party was the one now dictating what should be done. And this, of course, also facilitated the 1972 abrogation of the federal system of the Federal Republic of Cameroon.
Are you saying that the fact that there was a prime minister this way, House of Assembly, the federal inspectors did not outrightly undermine their powers?
He did to a great extent, but the West Cameroon government, the West Cameroon House of Assembly, was able to impress on Ahidjo that this is wrong. And Ahidjo, in a cosmetic fashion, curtailed some of the powers of the federal inspector.
Are you saying also that if there was no merge into the CNU, it would have been very difficult to dismantle the federal structure that existed?
You see, that's a question which should be given serious thought. And I always say the political situation, the social situation, the economic situation in West Cameroon played into the hands of Amadou Ahidjo. All along, Amadou Ahidjo and the French wanted a unitary system. The French political culture is not used to a federal system. So the political and economic social situation in Southern and West Cameroon, where the politicians quarreled among themselves, played into the hands of Ahidjo, given that all of them, the politicians in West Cameroon, looked upon Amadou Ahidjo as their savior. And I will give just one example. In February 1972, Augustine Gomjoa sent a confidential request to Amadou Ahidjo, in which he condemned Muna and even condemned Foncha and called on Ahidjo to save him. That should give you an idea. Called on Ahidjo to save him. To save him. It's just like nowadays, take it to a different extent. Thousands of Anglophone, thousands of people of the Northwest and Southwest have escaped to the French-speaking regions, asking their brothers and sisters of the French-speaking region, please give us shelter, give us protection. And I'm sure you must have realized in 2018 how my 17 motor park Anglophones were moving with their mattresses, their pots, their beds in truckloads, buses full, and they were all running away to the French-speaking areas. That gives you an idea.
Okay, we are out of time, but when you are a historian, certainly you read the resignation letters of both John Gould Foncha from the government and ST Muna. Do you think that they regretted the path they walked on alongside the current the Amadou Ahidjo's regime, and consequently President Biya?
I don't take it that way. I don't think that they regretted. What they regretted was that unfortunately Ahidjo and Biya did not adequately implement what they had agreed on.
The gentleman agreement.
They did not, because Ahidjo in 1959, for instance, said this union or reunification will be based on a federal structure. That was what he said. They will be the basis on a federation, a federal structure. So those who believed in him supported the reunification because they supported the federal structure. If you followed what Senator Victor Mokete said, he's one of those who fought, quote unquote, strongly for reunification. And he still believes in it. But he regrets that the Anglophones have not been well and treated, have not been treated well. So the dreams, the lofty dreams that he had, the country he imagined, the country he looked forward to, is not what he's seeing it. I'm sure you will recall that in a ceremony in Kumba. He got up from the grandstand when the person sent by the ministry was speaking in French. In Kumba, speaking in French. In a heavily, almost 99.9% French English-speaking population, with primary school children, secondary school children, our own parents present.
Okay. Professor, we are glad you agreed to talk to us for on this edition of The Point. Televiewers, we are going to end at this juncture, but we are planning another program on Prime Hour where we are going to be receiving Professor Victor Julius Ngo to talk more on the history of Cameroon, especially on the history between the people of southern and West Cameroon and the borders of East Cameroon. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, and it has been my pleasure.